Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to be sharing another one of my sky practices with you. Those of you that are regular viewers here at the channel will know that I generally try to paint at least one sky a day. And when I say painting one sky a day, I don't just paint the sky, I paint the scene below it, but the sky is always my focus. For some reason, I really enjoy painting skies. I think it's my favourite part of the whole painting for just about every painting that I do, whether it's a plain sky or a dramatic one, a stormy or a sunny sky. So today I'm going to be painting a sort of quite a pale summer sky, and I'm using raw sienna and cobalt blue. I've got my Saunders Waterford cold press paper taped to my board. My board is at an angle of about 45 degrees to help the paint to run and flow and diffuse beautifully on the page. I don't pre-stretch my paper, I just use it straight from the pack. It buckles a bit through the middle as the water soaks in, but then as it dries, it sort of contracts again and is held in place by the tape, so therefore it ends up flat when it's dry. I started off here on the dry paper with a watery mixture of raw sienna on my bamboo flat Harky brush that I got from AliExpress. I'm afraid I don't have the link. And I'm ran that across the paper, and now this is cobalt blue, and in exactly the same way, but slightly richer mixture to start with, adding in the sky around the clouds that I painted with the raw sienna and the white patches of paper that I've left unpainted. And then lifting some paint out and then dipping the brush in the water, drying it off a bit again, but to reduce the amount of paint on the brush, and then cleaning up and trying to get the horizon pale and straight. And once my horizon is straight, I've picked up some more cobalt blue and a little bit of raw sienna on the brush, and I'm pulling it horizontally across the sea area for a nice dry brush effect, and then bringing the brush in some areas and strengthening up the brush strokes so that it's not entirely dry brush sparkle, but I want to keep most of it there because I want just this to be very simple and very light, to sort of reflect the sky, so to speak, because that's quite simple and light in this case. I think that's sort of what I mean when I say that when I do my sky practice, I paint a whole scene, but the sky's my focus, so I'm led by the sky. And this sky has turned out to be sort of quite pale with that lovely sunny patch sort of in the centre. So I'm now reacting to that and going to work with that and use that to my advantage when I paint the sea. And so I'm going to try and keep the horizon line nice and straight with a clean damp brush, and then using a small flat brush I shall try and sort of put in a bit of fresh raw sienna in horizontal fine lines with the tips of the flat brush to reflect that sort of sunny area. So I think the main difference between a sky practice, which is a whole painting, and a whole planned painting is that I paint my sky first, and then according to how that turns out, I then decide how and what I'm going to paint for the landscape or seascape, etc. If I'm painting like a planned painting, I will obviously know in advance what my painting is going to be. I will have done thumbnail sketches, tonal sketches, that sort of thing, and sort of worked out the colours that I'm going to use beforehand, and maybe even had a sort of practice first. But these sky practices, I try to keep myself as open-minded and as free as possible, with just maybe the ideas of the colours that I'm going to use, and then react as I paint. And I find that's really good practice for watercolour painting, especially wet in wet, because very often as you paint, Things can happen that you don't expect. And if you're used to this sort of practice where you react to what happens on the page, then it's not a shock and it's not a disaster. It's something that you know that you can work with and react to in the sort of time frame that you have when you're working wet in wet. I'm now just building up a very loose, very simple little wave across the foreground with a bit of Payne's grey for some shadow and some stronger cobalt blue, lifting out with a tissue just for a few little sort of paler marks where there's sea spray. And then when that's completely dry, I shall go in with some white gouache and add some sea spray with that. I think I would probably have preferred this painting if I'd lifted out some white paper or paint back to the white of the paper for the wave crest a bit earlier. But Saunders Waterford isn't the best paper for lifting. Milford's much better, or some of the pulp papers. You can lift out much more easily with them. And now it's completely dry. I'm going to use my Matthew Palmer Tree and Texture brush. It's a stippling brush, or you could use any sort of stiff hog hair brush would probably do. And white gouache straight from the tube. And I'm going to work around that wave area, putting in my little white splashes and sprays of water just coming off that wave. And now I can go back in with my small Chinese calligraphy brush and just add a few shadows, sort of around and under the wave, and then I will soften those marks a little bit, just blend them in so they don't look quite so hard and harsh, so they just look like shadows across that bottom left corner. And that really is about it for this practice. I'm quite happy with the sky, and that was my focus. What I've got here is a sky where I don't have like the clouds chasing up across from the distance across the painting. It's just a nice, quiet, calm weather sky. And I'm quite happy with the way I've managed to reflect that sunny patch in the sky on the water. I think I'll probably just paint in a few seagulls once I've finished with this water, and I will use a rigger brush for that and some of the Payne's grey. Now this is a very fine rigger brush, and I'm just going to put in just the impressions of a few birds, some smaller, some slightly larger, but none of them really large or heavy, just to kind of draw attention to that area of the breaking wave and the sunny spot. So that becomes the focal point of this painting. And I think that's it's nice and simple, it's nice and fresh, it's not too overworked, except sort of the wave bit isn't my favourite wave that I've ever painted. But what I hope to have shown you here is that this sort of practice, whether the sky is your focus or, unlike me, if the land becomes your focus for your daily practice, just painting spontaneously and reacting to what happens is really good practice for when things, unexpected things happen. You can take advantage of these and see these as opportunities in your paintings rather than sort of panicking and thinking, oh no, that wasn't supposed to happen. You can use it, as Bob Ross called it, as a happy accident and see it as, an opportunity and not a mistake. So I'm removing the tape, and you can see now we've got that nice clean white border. And then this helps us to see a a painting with fresh eyes, and we can see if we need to do anything else to it. And I think looking at this, I think it just needs a little bit of adjustment to the white gouache, which is, as I said earlier, the area of the painting that I'm least happy with. So I'll just see if I can smooth it out and maybe accentuate the white a little bit more, but I'm not too worried. The goal here was to create this fresh, light summer sky with kind of very horizontal rather than diagonally oriented clouds, and I'm pleased to have achieved that. So I hope that was helpful. Please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, if you want to see more of these sorts of videos. And if you click on the bell icon, you'll be notified every time I upload a new video, which is usually at least twice a week. And thank you so much to my lovely Patreon group who support this channel. And I'll see you again soon, and happy painting. Bye.